Hello, I am in the process of building my Kage Strombecker style 1930s master bedroom. And this is going to be the double bed. I'm getting ready to make a template for the headboard and the baseboard, or footboard rather. Now the mattress is going to be made out of cloth and I'll have it filled with some kind of stuffing. But the base of it is made out of scrap wood. I try to use up whatever I have, as many of you do. It saves money and it's just a good thing. And right now I'm just putting in the headboard, just trying to measure out what it's going to look like. And I'm just using my imagination here. It's based on some of the things that I've seen, but it's not exactly like any of the ones I've seen. So I'm trying to make it my own while I make it in the style of that factory furniture that was very popular in the 1930s. And that's the base of the mattress. It's a platform, I suppose you could call it. And it's just cobbled together with scrap balsa wood and foam core, which is 1/2 inch thick. And I'm going to make the legs now. I'm just using a few measuring tools to help me out. But as you can see, I'm sort of making this up as I go along just to get something that looks pleasing to my own eye and hopefully to others. I'm just going to cut this scrap piece of cardboard out that I've saved. And I can use it again at some other point in time, but I will use it for the footboard as well. And I'll show you in a few minutes how I'll do that. This was a smaller X-Acto knife. I ended up having to change because I really needed the size and the weight of a number 2 blade. And this particular handle didn't accommodate a size 2 blade. And I'll actually have to sand this a little bit too and take down some of the sharp points that are left over on the cardboard. So this is some pretty stiff cardboard. It's not like poster board. It's not cardstock. Although you could use those. It's just this is a little heavier and I had it. Something that came in through the mail. It was another measuring tool. And it was backed up by this piece of stiff board. So yeah, I ended up having to change blades, as you can see. And I'll just give it a quick sand all the way around. And I'm just using an emery board I picked up at the dollar store. I picked up several of them. They don't last very long, but I can get more. And I'm just using 600 grit sandpaper to go around it. And that looks pretty good. I'm actually going to double up the balsa wood, but I started out with one thickness and then ended up doubling it up because it was just a little too flimsy. Needed to be stronger, but you won't see me do that. I didn't save the video for some reason of the second layer that I put on, but you'll get the idea. It's pretty easy to cut this out because it's very thin sheet. I can't tell you what the thickness is. I just don't remember, and I should write this stuff down so I can tell you, but it's the thinnest sheet you can buy. And as I said, I ended up doubling it up. I'm really fascinated with this factory-made furniture from the 30s and into the 40s. They made a very similar furniture. And then Kage came out with plastic furniture, which I really like as well, but I really like the fact that I can reproduce this furniture in my own way. It's fun. I enjoy doing it very much. So I do have some Kage furniture that I've picked up along the way at some of my antique expeditions in our area. And it is, where I live anyway, very reasonable. If you buy it online, it seems to be 3 or 4 times as much. And I'll just sand this too, just to get rid of any little shredded pieces. The only thing about balsa wood that I don't like is it does chip very easily and dent. Once you paint it, it's a little better, but you do have to be careful with it. And I mentioned this before, I did get a scroll saw as an early Christmas present, but I haven't completed setting it up yet. And I have to do it in my garage, and it's really quite cold in there right now, so I will probably end up putting it together completely after Christmas and seeing if I can put some kind of heat in the garage so I don't freeze to death. Now I'm going to do the footboard, and I'm just lowering it so it's smaller than the headboard. And I'm using the same leg configuration, so they're both the same. There. That was pretty easy to cut out. That little piece fell off the bottom of the leg, but I think it'll be okay. I'll just sand them both down to the same level and trim this up a bit. Now I'll be sanding this more later on. I'm just giving it a quick sand right now. These beds are fairly easy to make. I made one for the little boy's room, and that was a single bed, or a twin bed. And I pre-measured so that I knew both the figures, the mother and the father figure, would fit on the bed to make sure the scale was correct. And I'm just going to measure where to put this platform on it, and then I'll glue it and pin it in place. And I use corsage pins to help me out with this process. And they're a little thicker than regular pins, but you can use the regular glass head pins as well. You could use the ones with the metal heads on them, but they're a little harder to pull out. And the holes, you can't see them after you paint. But if you're not going to paint and you were going to put a stain on this, you would have to do something about the holes. You'd probably have to put a little bit of filler in them and then sand them down. Of course, the sort of cobbled up look of the base wouldn't look very nice just as it is, but no one will see it. I'm going to actually glue the mattress on top of this one, and then the coverlet will also be glued in place because I'm not going to allow it to be made or unmade. Not for this furniture. Once the stuff is in place, it's going to stay where it is. But I will be making the coverlet, the mattress, and I'll show you the pillows too. They're just so easy, I didn't film them. And there's just so little sewing on it. But you'll see them later. Now I'm making the dressing table. And this is a skirted dressing table. These were very popular right up through the 60s. My mother had something like this, I think. I'm trying to remember. We had something with a skirt on it. You know, we're talking ancient history here, though. I'll just sand this down a little bit. And I'm not really concerned so much except for the top of the table. And I'm just going to use square balsa wood legs that I've already pre-measured and cut off. But what I'm going to take time with is the skirting and some other details with that. Just making sure this is square and everything is the same. I bought that miniature square on Amazon recently. I have a large square too, but that gets to be, I use it, but it is a little difficult in limited space and when you're doing really small stuff. And I'm just sanding all of these to make sure they're smooth on the bottom, and I'll just glue them in place. I'm going to put pins in some of them I'll cut the pins off and the metal will stay in the leg, and then I'll push it down later to make sure no pointed end sticks up. And then there'll be one more support later, but you'll see that as well when I put the mirror on. I'm using my favorite DAP wood glue. It's called Weldwood, and it has a pleasant smell. A lot of the other glues don't smell very good, at least to me. And if you're sensitive to smells like I am, I had a hard time with Elmer's wood glue, and I don't know, I think I used Gorilla Glue too. They're good glues. I just didn't like the smell. And some of them didn't dry fast enough, and others dried too fast. And I found this was just right for me to use this particular brand. I'm just going to make sure these legs are straight so the table stands straight. I'm just pushing pins in. You wouldn't be able to do this with hardwood. And when I begin to use some hardwoods, I won't be able to use this method again. I will only be able to use it for foam or balsa wood. Now I'm going to make the skirting for this dressing table or vanity table. And I'm going to do it a half at a time because I didn't make this curtain thing big enough, this little curtain mold. I didn't want to make it much bigger at the time, but I'm going to put a few more sticks on it so I can do bigger curtains and things like this. And I'm just using a bookbinding tool, a bone bookbinding tool, to push it in. And I only put the fray check on half of it. And fray check is really nice because it doesn't change the color of the fabric. It's very thin. You could use other methods like glue, and some people actually do a sugar stiffening. But I find this is much better for me. I like fray check. It strengthens the fabric without making it, super stiff. and it keeps the ends from unraveling, the places where you cut. So I'll do probably 3 pieces, let that dry, and it dries rather quickly too, so you don't have to wait forever. I was thinking about some of these other fabrics for curtains. That I believe I'll use as the bedspread. It's an antique hanky. All the other fabric is Liberty of London that I bought in a package of cut pieces. This is Liberty of London as well. And I'm going to mix up the patterns, the fabric patterns, which in a home that's wouldn't be a really wealthy home, would be what would happen. Like it did in my own home when I was growing up. My mother tried to stay with certain colors, but it was always a sort of hodgepodge of design, but it worked somehow. And so I'm going to follow through with that same theme. I'm just putting pins in here to make sure it sticks. You can see on the left side it's kind of clear through, and the other side is already dried and done, and I'm just doing the other half. Some of these pattern, the print pattern on the fabrics isn't really tiny, but because it's going to be pleated, it will work just fine. And I'll just set that aside for now and let it dry up. Now I made this chair. This was the first chair that I made, and I didn't like it for the kitchen set that I eventually made, but I didn't throw it out. I thought, well, this would probably make a good vanity chair, and so I'm just going to trim it up a little bit. I had painted it blue already, and this is the blue I'm going to use for this particular bedroom set. It's Waverly Plaid paint that I had for a long time, and I have plenty of it, so I'm going to just fix this chair up, sand it a little more, repaint it. And I will eventually make a cushion for it with some trim around it, and I will put a decal on the back. Actually, the decals are stickers, they're fingernail art, but what I do is I'm going to put glue on it to stick them so to make sure they don't peel off. The back of this one was kind of had a lot of ridges in it from the way it was sawed, and but that was the other thing. I didn't want to use it then because it didn't look right to me, but I'm going to use it now. I think for vanity chair it'll be just fine. Sand it as much as I'm able to make it look a little better, so when the paint goes on it'll be a little smoother. Now the vanity table legs are dry, so I ended up pulling the pins out. I decided I needed more pins, except that one I left in. The one leg that seemed to be a little wonky, I left that in. Now this is porcelain clay that I made, and I don't have the recipe here for it, but I will make a recipe for it. I made mine a little differently than I've seen it made in previous videos, and I'm also using it as a hole filler because I did make some, the holes I made a little bit too big, and I felt, well, I think I'm going to have to fill these even though I'm going to paint it because I was wiggling the pins around. It dries very quickly, and it is sandable. It works great as a filler. Now the mirror I picked up at an antique sale, and it's very old, and it has a lot of the little cracks in it that I like to see, and it's beveled. But what I need to do is paint it all the way around. A lot of these vanities had round mirrors on them, but I tried to take a mirror out of an old compact and I just couldn't get it out. Tried soaking it in boiling water, all kinds of methods. I tried everything and I couldn't get the mirror out, so I gave up. I didn't want to just break it. So I'm using this antique mirror that I picked up some time ago. It was in the summer, I guess. It was probably sometime in July that I got it. I bought a couple of them. They were all different, but this one I think will work out really well. It's pretty heavy too. It's beveled, which, you don't see much in tiny mirrors like that. It was probably a mirror for a purse. And I'll just give this a quick coat of paint. I'll paint the top a couple of times and sand it in between painting to make sure it's smooth. But the rest of it you won't see. And that's the Waverly paint that I've been using. Now I'm going to paint the chair as well. It almost looks white in this film, but it's a nice blue color. It's light. It's a lighter blue, but it has a tinge of green in it. Just a little bit. It's very thick paint, and it's a matte finish. Okay, now this is dry and I'll just pull it off and I will refold it and make sure that the pleats are nice and tight. It looks like I have paint on my hands. I do, but it's dry, so not to worry. I'll need 3 pieces of this, I believe, because I don't think that 2 will stretch all the way across. I ended up taking that card and filling it with those lollipop sticks completely so that I could make curtains with it that were longer and fuller. I have to do one more, but you don't see that. I didn't film that. Okay, it looks like I'm repeating myself here, but I'm not. I haven't painted the top yet. So let's give it a first coat of paint. Make sure the legs are steady. And I'll have to give this 2 coats. This paint dries fairly quickly, so it's not like you have to wait an hour for it. It takes 15 minutes or so, and then you can put another coat of paint on. Now I'm thinking about putting a pillow made out of that same fabric too for the chair. But first I'm going to paint the back of this mirror. It was cloth, some kind of like almost an oilcloth on the back, and then it was rolled around the front. So I painted the front already, just around the edge. And I'll paint this a couple times too. And now that's dry, and I'll have to do the other side. I think I did the other side. I may not have had to. Just got to trim off the strings. Yeah, I did do it. So again, I'm just putting spray check on it and smearing it around so that everything gets covered. And I'll put a few pins in there to make sure it'll hold. And then I'll go ahead and push it in between those sticks. And when that's dry, I'll have my fabric for the table. Now I'm going back to the bed and I'm going to give that a coat of paint. I mean, I don't really have to paint the platform, but I decided to anyway. Just didn't seem complete without doing that. I did end up going back though and filling the cracks with that porcelain clay, so it looked a little more solid, and painting it again later. And I also doubled the wood on the headboard and the footboard after I painted it, so I left this in just because. I should have cut it out. But anyway, you see me painting it. I had 2 bottles of that Waverly paint. One was a pumpkin color, and when I opened it, I don't know what had happened. Somehow there was an air leak and the whole thing was just solid. So that color's gone. I was kind of sad because it was a really pretty pumpkin color. But this one was perfectly good, so I'm very happy about that. Okay, there's the little chair, and now all of the fabric for the vanity is cured, and I can start to put it around the vanity. I'm just using my tailor shears to trim off the ends to make sure they're even and that there's no little strings hanging around, little threads. I have plenty now to work with, and if I need a little extra, I'll have it. So I'll sand the top again, and then I will paint that again, but you won't see me do it. I just want to make sure the top is nice and smooth. And this is 1000 grit sandpaper. There are a few little places where I plugged up the holes that I just had to sand down a little better. And now I'll give it another coat. I said you wouldn't see that. I was wrong. I did include it, so there's the second coat. I do these films over several days, so sometimes you lose track a little bit. I'll touch that chair up again. I think I've been working on this one for 4 or 5 days, so I almost threw that little chair away. I'm glad I didn't. I'm going to touch that mirror up a little bit better. Just go around and make sure that I covered it all without getting it on the glass. Just using a very fine brush to do that. As I said before, this was covered with some kind of fabric, and it had sort of an oily finish to it, but I'm not worried about it not sticking. Now this is a glue that I like to use. It really sticks well. It has a nice sharp point at the end so that it doesn't come screaming out of the tube. It has a little bit of flexibility, unlike super glue. And I'm just going to pin it in. I already glued that first part. And I'm just going to go around and glue the separations together. I will go back and cut a separation right in the middle later on after the glue is dried. And I'm getting it just right to the top and pinning it in. And I'm being very careful not to allow the glue to spill over the top of it. This is where you have to be careful, where you don't stab yourself with those pins. The wood is very thin and you can make a mistake and it hurts if you get jabbed. But I'm being very careful. I think I did jab myself once though. And I'll just cut off the excess. So that took almost 3, and I just had a little piece left over. It took a little more than I thought it was going to, so just pull that back and glue it on. I'll glue a little bit of it to the leg too. And I'll just let that dry. And I'm just trimming the bottom to make sure it's all even, the same size all the way around. I'm not finished with this. I have quite a bit more to do. I'm going to put a piece of trim around the top. At this point I hadn't figured out which kind of trim I was going to use. And I have to fix the mirror somehow so that, because this mirror is heavy, I have to make it so it will stand up. What I ended up doing is cutting a piece of balsa wood, sticking it all the way up the mirror and all the way down and painting the back of it so that it would stand up with that piece of wood level with the legs, and then gluing it in place. And that made it very stable so it couldn't topple over. And now the little curtain is dry. And I'll take that apart, the skirting rather. Some of those pins, if they get a little glue on them, are difficult to pull out. If they get glue stuck on them, that little tomato pin cushion has that little additional tomato thing there. It's filled with sand, and you can clean your pins and sharpen them by poking them through that. Now, that's for people who aren't used to sewing. That might not know that. And I put the chair sticker on first. You just saw. Now this is ready to, I cut that in the middle so the chair could fit under it. And I need to put some trim around the edge of that. And there she is compared to the vanity, so she's the right size. That's the right size for her, rather. And I put the stickers on the back of the chair. You'll see how I do it on the bed. Now this is a piece of chenille yarn that looked like the right color for me. So that's what I'm going to put around the whole top of this. And I will put it around the little pillow too that will be on the chair. And I'm just going to glue it and pin it in place with that same glue. And go around the back. Now this glue says B6000, and it's not, it's kind of an expensive glue. Well, I found another of it. It's made by the same company, and I can tell no difference, called B7000. And it is the same glue, but it was less than half the amount of money. So, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is. If somebody out there knows the difference, tell me. When I used that glue up, I started using the 7000, and I could see no difference. I'll get the brand name and put a link in the description for it. I just glued that all the way around, just to give it a little more finished look. Of course, you won't see the back of this. It'll be against the wall. There's the 7000, and there's the 6000. Now, in the 6000 one, it says made for people in Europe and the United States. And that was the only difference I could see. So I don't know what that means, but who knows. Now I made the pillow. I just made the pillow with a little stuffing and folded the little extra piece of fabric in half. It's the same as the skirting. And now I glued the pillow right onto the chair. And now I'm just going to trim it with that same chenille. And I didn't include that in the video because it's just sewing a little square and stuffing it. I think pretty much anybody can figure out how to do that. But I did glue the pillow right onto the chair, so that's not coming off, and I'm going to put this all the way around, this chenille. And glue it in place. I don't like to use hot glue gun on stuff like this because it can get really messy. So I tend to use super glue or this type of glue that you see, this B6000, B7000. I can't think of the brand name of it right now, but it doesn't leave any obvious strings. Now I'm taking the nail art, which is just it's all floral. And I always put since I've been using this stuff, I've been always putting a little bit of super glue on it as well. I just don't trust the stickiness of these to stay. So I just put a little bit and smear it around, and I feel more confident that it'll stay put then. Now, and I also doubled the headboard. You can't tell quite at this point. Sorry about my fingers, but the paint is dry. These are sometimes a little bit hard to get off of the plastic, but if you bend the plastic around it, it seems to come apart pretty easily after that. I'm just trying to get this into the right place, and you can't see me doing it because of it. There, and I'm going to put a couple more pieces on. I'd like something with a little more blue in it. So, they're so tiny, but it's the right size for this sort of thing, and it looks pretty cute. And that will be the final piece. And there it is. You can see it. And now I have to do the footboard. And I'm just pulling off the same rose that's on the top of the headboard. And I'll just put 3 flowers on the footboard. I just have to find a couple more blue ones in there. There it is. It looks like a little violet or a pansy. I'll just put one. Well, that didn't stick. I had trouble with that one, but I eventually got it on. And then I found another one just like it on that same sheet and put that on the other side. There. Okay. And I put this little vase together. I had this little pot, and it's the same color blue as the paint. And I put some flowers in it that I had. And that will go on the vanity eventually. And there's the back of the chair. And there's the vanity, and that's dry now, and I can pull the pins out. I love the mirror. I love the little craquelure in the mirror. It's very old, and there, I'll just put those aside. And now I have to make the mattress, which you will not see because it's just a piece of folded sheeting, and it's stuffed. I just put them on it so you can see that they both fit. And now I want to do the curtains, and I had to decide which ones to use out of the Liberty of London fabric I had. That looks like a kind of Morris print, but it didn't look like it would work real well. I'm going to make the bedspread out of this antique linen hanky. I'll have to cut it down and iron it because it has some serious creases in it. I was thinking about cutting it out and putting it as an applique on it, but I didn't end up doing that. I wanted to see what these prints look like gathered first, because they are rather large prints. But when you gather them, they don't look as noisy. I did end up using these. It seemed more 30-ish, the design, 1930-ish. So I put that other aside for something else. And now I'm going to make the pleated curtains. And you can see that pleating board is much bigger now. I added more lollipop sticks to it. So I'm just going to wet this whole thing with fray check and put it in. And these are two different size lollipop sticks alternatingly, so that it looks a little bit more natural. I think if they're all the same, it kind of has a, I don't know, it looks too much like they came out of a mold, to me anyway. And if they're too big, it looks kind of strange too. So these just seem to be the right size. There's both one slightly smaller than the other. And then you just have to make it wide enough so that you can get something in between to push it in between the dowels or the sticks. And I'll let that dry. And I'm not going to make the curtains in this video. I'll actually finish them in the next video with a window. But you'll see this process here of pleating. Now that's what I made the bed mattress out of. That's actually cotton from World War II. I had bought a bunch of cotton that was being stripped and sent to Europe for bandages. And this is one of the larger bandages that I cut a piece off of. And it's just cotton. It's probably somebody's bed sheet. It was left over in a box. And I'm going to make a little template for the top of the bed so that I can make the bedspread and the mattress the right size. And that's that same cardboard I used for the headboard. It's just another piece of it. So I'll just measure this quickly. That ruler you see that I'm using, I bought that in 1972. So that's pretty old too. Not as old as the piece of sheet, but it's pretty old. And I'll just cut it with scissors. It doesn't have to be so exact. I ended up having just got a little bit off the bottom of that so it would fit flat. There. Now that will be the top of the coverlet, and I'm just measuring the sides to make sure I have it right. And I'll use that to make both the mattress and the coverlet. And the coverlet, I'm going to want to fold the top of it where the pillows, under where the pillows go. And I need a few inches on each side. So I'm just going to get a pencil, a white fabric pencil, and draw around it a little bit so I can cut it after I measure. I'm not looking, it doesn't have to be super exact either because that's just not how bedding fits. So I'm not going to be worried about that. I'm just going to make sure there's a little bit of a seam allowance there. And there's enough seam allowance on the bottom. And then I'm just going to cut it out with some my sharp tailor scissors. It's a beautiful little hanky. It's very thin linen. I don't know how old it is, but it's certainly vintage. It's probably from the 50s. And that's where I'll fold it at the top. And this will go, there'll be a mattress under it. So that's just about right. And I'm going to sew the mattress and stuff it. But first I'm going to take off the curtain and put another one on. I'm just removing the pins. And it's completely dry, so I'll pull that off. And I'm just going to sharpen the creases in the fold because they're rounded. And I just want to do that to make it look a little more natural. And then I'll trim all the extra threads off. go. And I'll set that aside and I'll make another one. Get all those little threads off. The threads really make things look like they're unfinished. This does not have to be hemmed once you put that fray check on it, so there doesn't need to be any hemming. You could hem it, but all right, there's the pillows finished, made out of that same sheeting. There's the bedspread ironed. It's very plain, but I like it. It's draped over. You can see the mattress underneath it. The bed is completely finished now. And the chair, everything is done. And there's my vanity. You can see my camera in the mirror. And there's the split. Get a close-up of all those little cracks. Some people try to do that to the back of mirrors to make them look old. This one had it already. And there's the little chair that goes with it. So the woman can sit and put her makeup on, or her perfume, or powders. There's my little vase with the flowers. Picked that vase up at an antique store. It's not old. It's probably from China. I know the flowers are. I actually put some paint on the flowers to tone them down. They were neon. Here's a little bottle I made out of beads some time ago. That was one of the first things I made on this channel, were these little beaded perfume bottles. And there's two more. They're not real straight, but I guess I could bend them back into shape a little bit. And there's a little, that's actually for a brooch. It's a jeweler's finding, but it looks like a tray, so I decided it would be a tray. I'll put that on the dresser. It'll fall off when I set it down, no doubt. Well, you can't really see it, but there you go. Don't fall down, please. All right. There we go. Now I have the beginnings of the bedroom. The next video will be 2 side tables, 2 lamps, and I'll make a dresser. And I also made a carpet, and I'll show that. I printed it on velour paper, which gives it a very realistic look. And I'll tell you how I did that in the next video, and I'll show links for the velour paper. I know some people use spoonflower to print out rugs. They have their rugs printed on velvet sample fabrics, but it's quite expensive to do that. Well, that's all for today. I'll be back in about a week with more. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment. I would appreciate it. Bye-bye.